Good evening and welcome to Georgia Tech. My name is Tyler Barker, coordinator within the Office of Parent and Family Programs, and I would like to welcome you to our first parent panel for facet orientation, which is hosted by the Office of Parent and Family Programs here for you all today and this evening. We are so excited to have you all. We know that this is probably one of the most exciting, yet nervous and anxious and maybe sad times of the year as we're approaching that move-in date. We're getting our tissues together and our bags packed and our checklists together. We are just so excited to have you here today. Today, we are joined by some current parents of current students and a early graduate who have been in your shoes a couple of years ago, who know the ropes and are here to kind of share experiences and give advice to you as a parent. We will have a couple preset questions to get our conversation started, but we would love for you to utilize our Q&A chat box to just, say what's on your mind, ask the questions from these parents. We know that many of you are just wanting to get as much information as you can, and that's why we're hosting this event this evening. We will start off with introductions, and then we'll go into our Q&A that we have for the panelists, and then we'll kind of open it up to you all. So we'll start off with Mike and Christy. If you could tell us a little bit about your student, the major, their name, their year at Tech, and some of their involvements. What kind of organizations were they involved in and experiences here at Georgia Tech? Mike and Christy, kick us off.
My name is Mike and my wife Christy Owens. We're from Thomasville, Georgia. Our son Ryan recently graduated in May. He was a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration and is going to stay at Georgia Tech to get his master's in analytics. He starts that in August of this year.
Some of the things he was involved with on campus, he was a PAL. He also had an on-campus job. He was a GT 1000 ambassador, and he also was heavily involved in campus intramurals.
Great. Thank you so much. Grant, would you mind just sharing a little bit about your student as well?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Grant Campbell. My son, Cole, is a rising third year. He's a mechanical engineering major with a minor in computer science, and I think it's called an emphasis in robotics. He is currently full-time, taking a full load this summer, and will start a co-op this fall. He's involved in Greek life. He's getting involved in the off-road 4x4 build club that they've got. He has a job with a design group via Georgia Tech and Stanford, and we're an Atlanta-based family, so he's near home.
Great, thank you so much. I'll now turn it over to Stephanie, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about your student.
Sure. My name is Stephanie Silas, and our son is Thomas. He's a rising senior in Earth and Atmospheric Science. We live in Utah, just outside of Salt Lake City in Utah, and he is active on campus in a few things. He's lived on campus all 3 years and is going to live again in the North Ave Apartments next year. He is active in Christian Campus Fellowship, where he's going to be a senior leader next year. And there's a meteorology club. So he's on the meteorology track, and there's a storm club that he is involved in, and other activities. Oh, I know the other is he also works on campus in the EAS office, the front office.
Great, that's awesome. And now Maxine and Kelvin, would you mind just talking about your student as well?
Hi, so Maxine and Kelvin Pierre, we're from Atlanta, Georgia. We have two kids at Georgia Tech. We have a rising fourth year and a rising third year. Our oldest one is a biomedical engineering major with a minor in computer science, and our younger one is majoring in biology. Both of them will be graduating next May, so that's very exciting. And they're involved in several things. They've done intramural sports. My oldest one is a chair in SCPC, which is one of the student council organizations that does a lot of the activities for the school, like midnight breakfast and things of that nature. He's also been an MRA, a resident advisor. And then my youngest one is involved in some activities as well, like student hospital connections. They do volunteering with high schoolers and do tutoring, et cetera, especially during COVID. He was very involved in that.
Great. Thank you all so much. And we are also fortunate enough to be joined by one of our colleagues on campus, Ellery Kirkconnell from the admissions office. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself as well, Ellery.
Thank you, Tyler. Hi, everyone. My name is Ellery Kirkconnell, and I'm one of the senior admissions counselors here at Tech. And I do read applications throughout the process. So most likely, I read your son or daughter's application and petitioned for them for admissions in the admissions committee. So happy to see it coming full circles. Sometimes, even though your son or daughter may have already been admitted into Tech, you may find yourself with lingering admissions questions. So I'm here to answer any of those questions that you may have. But again, before I go on, or before this presentation go on, I want to also congratulate you because it takes a village, and your son or daughter has done tremendous work to be admitted into Tech. So thank you so much for your time.
Great. And lastly, we're also fortunate enough to be joined by a current student. Sarah, if you just wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Tyler. So my name is Sarah, and I am a fourth year. I'm finishing up this current summer semester, and then I will be done with my degree. I am also a PAL, which is a parent assistant leader in the Parent and Family Programs office. I'm also involved with the American Institute of Chemical Engineers Club. I am a student ambassador for the Chemical Engineering Department, and I've also been involved in undergraduate research.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. So now we'll just start off with a couple questions for our panelists. I'll start with Maxine and Kelvin. If you wouldn't mind just touching on probably the number one question as you're transitioning from high school to college, how often should I communicate with my student? What are those communication boundaries? What do they look like now that they're off by themselves?
Okay, that's a really good question. As far as how often you should communicate, I can tell you that it's I'm not sure how many of you if you're experiencing this for the first time, but if you are, it can be a bit challenging to get a feel for the balance of that. I would say that try to let your student somewhat lead the communication. If you feel as if there's that anxiety where you just feel like you need to reach out to them, I would say, go ahead, but there's a balance between communicating, I guess, too much and allowing them a chance to, get a feel and spread their wings. So I can't give you, I can't quantify it and say once a week, twice a week, but it just depends on the student. You may have a student who's very social and they'll hit campus and, they probably won't be as accessible, and you may have some who spend more time in the room. But I would just say,
well, we have two kids, and they're very different. I have one that communicates probably almost every day, just, hey, I did this, I did that. And I have one that, will communicate every couple of days. What I do ask them is to, hey, make sure you let me know you're alive somewhere. So it's very, and then during finals and midterms, you really feel it, right? They're so overwhelmed and they're so consumed with studying. So also be cognizant of that there's certain parts of the semester that are very, very busy. And just be aware they're not running away from you. They're just not enough hours in the day.
Great. Thank you all so much. Grant, if you wouldn't mind just touching on communication with your student as well.
Yeah, I remember those first summer days pretty well. Our son was one that we wouldn't hear from, even though he's only 8 miles away from our house, ever, if we didn't kind of set a guideline. And so we decided, as between he and my wife and I, that we'd try to talk at least once every week, and usually that was on a Sunday night, just to kind of give it a framework. And it ended up working really well for us, because then, somewhere around dinner time, we would, either he knew he'd have a little quality time with us, tell us what happened in his week, and we'd feel like we were connecting with what was going on in his life. And that held pretty true. Even before COVID last year, we tried to have one kind of quality conversation a week, and then the rest is texts or quick calls or, this is going on or I need that or whatever. And that worked for us. But again, our son isn't outwardly communicative. He would not be calling us every day to tell us what was going on unless we kind of set that up front, and it worked well.
Great, thank you so much. Stephanie, if you wouldn't just mind briefly touching on communication styles here.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. So we did similar to Grant. Basically we did, and granted we're in Utah, right? So we're so far away, we feel like, but every Sunday we had a FaceTime schedule. So where we all, his brother and my husband and I, we all sit down on the couch and we put Thomas on, and we had probably a good hour-long FaceTime, and that was just a catch-up for everybody. So he'd catch up on us and we'd catch up on him. And then I'd say, and again, this will just vary per family, but we probably have a touch point most days, actually, of a text. And I think it's because we're a big group texting family. So, and sometimes it'll be just my other son. So just my other son and Thomas will have texted a few times. And Michael will tell me, hey, I just talked to Tom, I heard from Thomas today. And so, you just know that he's okay because he was texting. But we also just, if something's going on that's funny, we'll put it in the family group text. And then you just get a touch point. He knows we're thinking about him, and he'll send something back. And so I think that was good. And then the third thing is that I'd say even more as each year passed, Thomas would text, say on an afternoon, and I'd text back, and he'd text something, and then he'd say my thumbs were too slow, and then he'd just call, then he'd just call. So he clearly had some free time and wanted to touch base, and we'd have a wonderful phone conversation. And so I think just letting them lead that, but nothing wrong with having an excuse for a touch point where you're just going to make sure they exist each day or every other day kind of thing.
All right, awesome. And then lastly, Mike and Christy, if you wouldn't mind just briefly touching on communication styles between you all and Ryan. Mike and Christy, do we have you here? Maybe a little technical difficulties. That's okay. We'll move on to our next question, and once they rejoin us, we'll go back to them. So the next question is about grades and academic progress. How do you discuss academic progress with your student? Does your student show you their grades at the end of each semester? And considering that now that they're adults and we have FERPA, what is that process like now that they don't necessarily have to show you their grades? Mike and Christy, if you wouldn't mind kicking off that question about the grades.
I think we constantly communicate about the grades, not as so much pressuring our child, but to just kind of stay informed of what's going on. He sort of informed us if he had a difficult test coming up, so we kind of kept that in the back of our mind and made mental notes to check on that, just to check in and see what the outcome of those things are. Usually at the end of the semester, he would send us a screenshot of his grades and let us know. We never, I guess we were fortunate, we never really had an issue with that. I do remember his first semester had a really hard math class. And most of the kids at Tech are smart kids, and when you have a child that says, "Ooh, I've got a C in the class," you're not accustomed to your child making a C. He's like, "I think I'm going to have to withdraw from this class." So, you have those things that happen as long as your children are up front and kind of let you know what's going on. You just kind of have those discussions, whether it's, you want to hear your child's, struggling a little bit at first, but, they overcome it and they get help and seek out assistance, from their professors if they need it. But we were fortunate that we really never had issues with our son trying to hide grades or not sharing that information with us.
Great, thank you so much. I'll kick it right back to you, Stephanie, if you wouldn't mind just touching on you all's communication around academic progress and grades, and how does Thomas go about sharing them with you?
Yeah, sure. So we definitely probably didn't talk about grades per se, like during any semester while the semester is happening, right? So it's definitely, our conversations were more, how is that class going? And if he'd be like, that's a really hard class, then the follow-up would be, what are you doing about it? Do you go to the office hours? And so it's just kind of being encouraging, like, everyone's supposed to do office hours. Apparently, teachers are really into this. So just being really encouraging. but we definitely didn't really follow, but definitely same thing, kind of nothing ever tried to be hidden because, he'll put together a resume or he'll put together an application and, throughout the past 3 years that involves putting his GPA on there and so we see it and he knows we see it. But mostly for us and his academics, it's just been very much, how's that class going? Do you have access to folks to help you with it if you're having troubles? And then what I found, just kind of on the bigger scheme of what I think the parents' side ought to be maybe more, is just ask them what they're learning. Thomas loves sitting down and pulling out his lecture notes for a few of the classes that he's taken and be like, take a look at this, look at this equation. Isn't this amazing? But there's a certain joy for them, I think, in knowing that we appreciate that they're working so hard and that they're learning stuff. So we've kind of approached it from that angle and haven't had any concerns about needing to know anything.
Great. Grant, would you mind taking that question as well briefly?
Yeah, similar to everybody else's comments. I've still have never seen anything in writing about what his grades are. We've seen what he's put on a resume, and we've seen some of the accolades he's gotten from some of the great semesters he's had there. But it was more a matter of, just like Stephanie was saying, just as they go along, how are things going? All the kids that get into Georgia Tech are driven in some way or form or fashion. They're all really smart. And the one thing I do want the parents to know that we've been confirmed over and over again when it comes not just grades but the classes. Georgia Tech is such a constructive, competitive environment. It's not, if I do better, you have to do worse for me to do better. The kids that Cole has met and interacted with in his classes and in his fraternity are like, how can we all do fantastic? And that's really played out in his first 2 years, and it's been so exciting to see that because it's parlayed itself into, he's gotten really good grades, but he's also helped other kids do better in a class, and we see that constantly. And I love that constructive competitiveness at Tech. It's really, really out there.
Great. Thank you so much. And just for the sake of time, I think we'll just move on to the next question, which will kick off with Max and Kelvin. The next question is, what have you learned about your two students during the pandemic that can be beneficial for the parent to student relationship once classes resume in the fall? We know that this past year has been unique for all of us, and you may have learned something, a little nugget that maybe you can share with these incoming parents and family members that can be beneficial that you perhaps didn't know about your students, that the time together spent allowed you to kind of learn something new.
So I would say, it is difficult from a in-person classes to remote. Most of the professors were extremely helpful. Some of the professors felt, oh, you're doing it from home, so your tests have to be harder. So it really showed how resilient they were. It really showed their...
Hey, Maxie, we're having some feedback issues.
Okay.
We're having some feedback issues from you all.
Okay.
I think we'll maybe swing back around.
Okay.
I can take it.
Hi, Tyler. Yeah, one thing we learned, Ryan has some tremendous resiliency to go through what he did this year. Having to do everything online, everything inside, not leave. He was very good about calling us to check in to make sure we were okay during all this, and that kind of stuff. So he was a fourth year when all this kind of happened, but just very resilient, and actually something that I'm very proud of. I think that's shown how much he's grown since he got to be a first year to a fourth year, and that's this whole thing that we're all talking about, is that we're trying to get these kids from seniors in high school to be adults. They're learning to adult when they're in college like this, and Ryan really showed me that he was learning to do this during COVID. That was not easy to do, and he excelled in his grades. He kept everything up. He was very organized. So that, and I think the first 3 years at Georgia Tech helped him do that.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much. Grant, if you wouldn't just mind touching on perhaps a new nugget or just something new that you noticed about your son.
Well, when COVID first hit, we realized right away when I sat in on 5 minutes of one of his video conference classes that he's in classes that I can't even pronounce some of the names of, never mind do as well as he's doing. So, we have an appreciation for how hard the courses are from an empathy standpoint. But one of the things that I learned was how he manages his time in this environment is different. High school was a different ballgame for him. He did really well in high school, but the time management piece was more at school, and then he had a routine for homework and stuff. But when he got to Tech, the way he manages his projects and his classes allows us, seeing that during the pandemic allows us to kind of say, okay, the way he's doing it may not be the way I would do it, or he waits for certain things to be at a certain point before he triggers, in his mind that, okay, I got to get crunching on this, and that's helped us communicate with him because he's got the grade piece of it up, and so whatever he's doing, whether it's the way I do it or my wife does it, works for him. And we saw that during the pandemic, and that's something I think that will carry us forward as he finishes up at Tech.
Great, awesome. And Stephanie, if you wouldn't just mind briefly just sharing something as well.
Yeah, so I would say mine is less academic than social. It was just, when he was here this whole time, he did not miss a Zoom meeting or whatever, Blue Jeans meeting, whoever is doing it, but he did not miss a meeting with any of his social groups. Or certainly any of his classes, but he went to every single CCF activity, every Storm Club meeting that was online, from our house. He's like, we're having dinner at 6. He's like, I've got to go. I've got a meeting at 6. And just how much he valued those relationships was heartwarming. And then the other thing that was cool this past year, so he had a boatload of classes that could be in person this year, which is cool when you're an EAS major and there were all these small classes. So you didn't have to go, but you could go. And anything that he possibly could attend in person, even if it was early in the morning, he attended. It was extremely important to him, and he didn't miss a single in-person opportunity the past 2 semesters. And that was, socially, for a parent to know your kid is really enjoying being with the people there, just warmed my heart.
Great, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now we'll go back to Maxine and Kelvin now that we have you all back with us.
Is the audio better?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Well, she was speaking, so I'm the tester.
Well, I was just saying that it showed us how resilient they are. Moving from in-person to remote could be challenging, especially when you're working in labs or group projects and you can't get together in the traditional way. And how resilient and how well they work together within their groups. Our oldest one is a BME major, and most of his senior level classes are projects. And it was really cool to see, again, how they would come together, pull videos from 5 different people, make it into one presentation. So that was exciting to see.
No, I mean, she said it. I'm not gonna.
Great, that's awesome. That's awesome. For this next question, I'll definitely start off with Mike and Christy, since I know Ryan so well. Should my student co-op or internship, is that experience beneficial? And if so, in what ways?
I think for us, our son participated in an internship for 3 summers. He's actually completing one now, and then he will start grad school in the fall. Georgia Tech has such a wealth of resources and such wonderful companies that come and participate in the different career fairs. I think even as a freshman for some of Ryan's classes, he was required to go to the career fairs, whether or not he was looking for an internship, but just to get the experience of talking to different companies and learning, how that whole networking process works. So definitely the internship was a wonderful experience for our child. I can't remember if this was part of the question, Tyler, but study abroad too.
Mm-hmm.
He had the opportunity to participate in that. And he went somewhere, he went to Australia and studied there. And I would have never have picked that location for him to go. And it was probably the farthest location that he could choose to go and the most expensive flight that he could choose. If we had known all that from the beginning, we may have steered him in a different direction. But again, that was totally his decision. And he was set and ready and didn't know any other person at all when he went, and he thoroughly had the best time and got to do some other travel to New Zealand and some other places that he may never have the opportunity to go back to. So those opportunities are definitely available at Georgia Tech. If it's things that your child is interested in, I would certainly advise you and encourage them to look into all those opportunities, because it's just a wealth of resources there at Tech that they can tap into.
I will say this: he was ready to come home after that while in Australia. Though, so that's a long way to be away from home. He was ready to get back.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kelvin and Maxine, did either one of your two sons have opportunity to intern or co-op?
Well, our boys did an intern or co-op. Well, our oldest one did intern, and again, it was a great experience. It gave him a feel for, working in an industry and 8 to 5 and all that working experience. But also research and TA. So our kids have done research, and one of them has been a TA, a teacher assistant, and those have been great experiences as well.
Great. Stephanie, would you like to chime in if your son has had an opportunity to intern or co-op?
So Thomas has not interned and co-opted, and I think it's less of a thing in EAS as it is for some of the engineering students I know. However, the research is definitely available. And so, for example, currently this summer, he's doing research with one of his professors. He's doing it virtually, so he's at home, but he's going to continue it for credit in the fall. They have a project that they're working on. So that's all. And we have not done study abroad.
Great. Thank you so much. And now what we'll do, parents and family members, is we'll kind of open up our Q&A. So if you have any questions, should I bring a car? Just, hey, how do you handle the first D, the first C? Just any questions that you can think of, mom to mom, or dad to dad, or just family to family. Please drop those in the Q&A and we'll try to get to those. The first question I actually have is for Grant. Considering that Cole is a member of our Greek life here on campus, can you talk about some of the positives of Greek life that you've seen that has helped Cole out through his experience?
Yeah, it's been a fantastic experience for Cole. He is an only child, and now he's got 19 pledge brothers that he treats like real brothers, and it's been not just the social, the fun part of it. He was fortunate to start at Tech, in 2019, so he had a year of pre-COVID with the fraternity, and one of the main benefits that he is now experiencing as he's getting into co-ops and kind of getting further along in his education has been just the contacts at the fraternity and the wealth of experience that his fraternity brothers have for different companies and different ways to go about it, and when does do you study abroad your freshman summer, or do you study abroad after your second year? What's worked best based on the different majors, and that's been extremely helpful for him. It's like having 60 guys that he can bounce ideas off to that are all living in the same house, and he is living at the house the second year. He was in the dorm the first year, obviously, but it's been a fantastic experience for him in the Greek life.
Yes. And I see that the parent also had a question just about some of the cons. The only con I would say perhaps is that, Greek life isn't for everybody. There's definitely a fit in terms of just how it fits with your student, and that's okay. Greek life isn't for everybody, but we do have positive experiences overwhelmingly from students who do participate in it. But if your student is perhaps a little hesitant, they can join the second year. If they are kind of hesitant about joining the first year. And to combat that, we have over 400 student organizations that range from a myriad of things that you can't even imagine, that students can join. We have ethnic organizations. So we have ways other than Greek life for students and certain student populations to get involved on campus. And so definitely encourage your student to kind of check it out, attend an information session if they can, visit the website, Turning Sorority Life, email some of the staff members if they have any further questions. We'll just kind of leave it at that. The next question, yeah.
I just want to add that Cole's first semester rushing the fraternity is a challenge. It's a ton of time, and the transition into college and the difficulty of the classes on top of the time commitment of rush. You've really got to have your head on straight to get through that and do it successfully. And different fraternities are different time commitments, but his rush was a lot of time.
Great. Thank you so much. The next question I have is for Stephanie. Being that you are our out-of-state parent representing us here tonight, I think a lot of our out-of-state parents who are on the call, on the webinar, they would love to know how the car situation and that conversation and how that has worked out for you all in your household, and any advice or recommendations. Should they bring?
Okay, perfect. Yes. So Thomas did not have a car on campus the first 2 years. And that was awesome. We were thrilled with that decision, and he did not mind that decision. And then he did have a car on it for the first time this last year. And of course we have to drive it there and drive it back. And then he's going to have it. So he'll have it the last 2 years. But we were thrilled with him not having it the first 2 years for several reasons. One is it guaranteed that he was going to be hanging out with people on campus on the weekends, so he wasn't going to just go off and go do a hike somewhere else, that he was going to be, it improved the social situation, I think. And it also just kind of kept him centered with a bunch of other kids. So if he was going to do something, it was going to be with a bunch of other kids. And most of the organizations and things that he did activities with, the older kids would have the cars and would drive them to the retreats and to the activities anyway. So he was never bothered by that. And he had an Uber account too, but I don't even think he Ubered anywhere. And I was really pleased with that decision, and he hasn't ever had any concerns about it either. But I think this last year, I think the little extra freedom, and he's the one who's driving the kids to the retreats. So I think he's enjoyed that for his junior and his senior year.
Great, that's awesome. Mike and Christy, I would love to hear from you as well on that topic and kind of get your insight.
About the car topic?
Yes.
We do live in Georgia, but we're 4 hours away from Atlanta. Our son has had a car the entire time that he's been there. The reasoning for that was really just because we live in Georgia, and if he wanted to come home, it was a drivable drive, and he would have the opportunity to come home if he wanted to. I think he came home one time the first semester, yeah. So I was hoping maybe it would be a little more of an incentive to come home. But really, he was probably in the minority of, for his friend group of students that had cars. So he drove a lot of the kids if they wanted to go to Target or Publix or wherever. But it's worked out. I will share with you that the parking pass is extremely expensive as compared to many other colleges. So, if you decide to make that choice to let your child have their car there, it is quite pricey. So just keep that in mind.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Kelvin and Maxine, the next question is for you all. How often did your students return home in that first year on holidays and breaks? And how did that conversation go? Were you flexible? Were you kind of stern? How did that go the first year? And what advice do you all have for parents?
Well, the first year, our older son, he didn't have a car. He didn't have a car on campus. But as far as coming home, because he's so active and social, I think he made a point to try to visit or come home probably once every 3 weeks. We were
fortunate that our youngest son was playing football, so he would come home for his brother's games. But the following semester, it kind of trickled down, especially as he built more relationships with folks on campus. But I would say he would come home once a month at least.
Yeah.
Grant,
But Tyler,
yeah.
well, one more thing I want to say, going back to the previous question about having a car on campus. Our older son didn't have a car his first semester, but I just want to mention that the transportation, the Georgia Tech transportation was efficient for the kids to go back and forth to class and to even, I don't, was there some, yeah, shopping as well. So I just want to put that out there. That wasn't mentioned, but the transportation that Georgia Tech provides the kids it's adequate, efficient.
Great. Thank you so much to the both of you. Grant, I would love to get your insight on that topic as well, just about coming home for the holidays and things of that sort.
Yeah, and like I said, we're only 8 miles as the crow flies, but we didn't see him much the first semester of the first year. I mean, he was home for the holidays. That was a kind of a family rule when he went off to college. No matter where he was going to go, he was going to come home for the holidays. There were a couple occasions with family emergency or something like that where we saw him, but it was mostly he could have been out of state. I mean, he was starting his own college life and developing his own friendships, and as long as we felt like we were communicating enough to know what he was up to, just from a interest standpoint, that was okay. And so we didn't see him much the first year at Georgia Tech, and except for the holidays. But he was definitely home for the holidays. That was something we had set up front. And by the way, again, back to the cars, he didn't have his car on campus the first year, but he lived on East Campus, and you can walk to the Publix and you can walk to a lot of the food. And I mean, it was not an issue at all. I mean, he didn't even need the shuttle, and that worked out fine.
Great. Thank you so much. The next
Hey,
question.
Taylor, I wanted to say something about coming home, especially for people that are local. You can always bribe them with a home cooked meal. So that was my trick. He will start complaining about maybe, oh, I'm tired of cafeteria food. Oh, come on home. I'll cook you some food and invite your friends. So that was also a tactic that kind of worked very often.
Oh yeah, that you can't beat that home cooking. You can't beat that. The next question I have is for Stephanie. Considering out of state, and this topic is about move-in, what to bring, what to bring. After reflecting back, now that you've had time to reflect on that, what advice would you give to these new incoming parents and family members about, if you're out of state, what's really essential, what's not, and how does that move-in process go?
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So I studied up for this before he started, and I used all the resources I could, and they were very effective. So Georgia Tech's website and whatever you guys gave at Facet regarding what one needs for their dorm room was perfect. And so there's like some sort of a list, I think, that you hand out and that housing has online, but it really is perfect. And so we just went through this list of all the necessities that a kid needs for their, half of a dorm. And we did, and I would recommend this, and there are probably lots of companies that do it, but Bed Bath & Beyond does this awesome thing where you go in online or you go into your store in Salt Lake City and you pick out all the things that you want for the dorm room, and they put it on a list, and they have a day that it's going to be available in Atlanta. And then you go in on move-in day in Atlanta and you pick it all up and you move it in. And so that was absolutely slick for us. So we didn't drive out anything. We flew out and went to Bed Bath & Beyond and got all of his stuff. And so things to know: Target, the nearby Targets and the nearby Walmarts are out of stuff. So if you don't have access to drive a little bit farther out, you might not find the stuff you want. So it really is useful to sort of have something pre-ordered and shipped. And then regarding move-in for out-of-staters, and it's probably the same for in-staters too, but maybe, the homesickness issue is huge. It was for us, for me and my husband and my other son, and for Thomas. That was a really big deal. It was very sad parting, and that was probably the hardest thing he's done, that he says he's done in life, is go to school in Atlanta. And we make sure to spend a lot of time planning on moving into that room and helping them get that room ready. And it may seem silly for a guy, boys don't need their rooms decorated. They don't need anything. I guarantee you that he, and I know this because for 3 years solid now, he's had the same room decor, and he knows where everything goes from the very first time we put stuff up. And we brought a bunch of family photos, and he's got one of those little electronic Pixars that we can send pictures to. So pictures of the family on the walls, or you can get a bunch of those 3M commands strips so that they don't mess the walls up. And we had a few encouraging plaques, Georgia Tech pennants, Deer Valley ski area map. So just make that room home for them and spend a little extra time and make sure you finish. Don't leave things for them to put up when you're done, because that's probably not going to happen. But we did that, and I did see one question in the chat about should parents leave after move-in, and I would answer that yes. As sad and teary as that moment is when you give them that hug before they go off to their convocation and then start, that should be a break point. And that's the first night that they've got to go to the dining hall and meet somebody and go. So in answer to one of the questions I saw in the chat, I would also recommend that, as sad and hard as it is for you to be in that hotel room one more night knowing they're in, across the street.
Right.
So,
Thank you so much for sharing. Just briefly, just for the sake of time, Maxine and Kelvin, would you mind touching on move-in as well? I know, Maxine, you're always our move-in guru every year, tips and tricks.
Yep. So I'm going to just let her go.
Well, I always say this every year. Don't forget, whatever you bring, you got to take back. So think about that. The volume that you move in is the volume, the hours, all the work, the lifting that's going to happen. But Stephanie hit the nail on the head. Those lists from the housing department are very good. There's some little things that we don't think about. Make sure you have a first aid kit. Atlanta weather is great. Sometimes it's very weird. A raincoat, an umbrella. There's those things that you just, especially boys. I have 2 boys. They don't think about that. But I would say, Stephanie, there's this great insight. That's their home. That's going to be their home for however many years they're there. So yeah, make it homey, make it personable. And again, the main thing for me is the first aid kit, and then prepare for the weather, because in the fall, you come out in the morning and it's sunny. You come out of class and it's a typhoon. So make sure that they're prepared for that.
And it does make it easier when you have those plastic bins to pack your belongings in. We found it easier to have everything in one, well, more than one bin, but having those plastic bins really help with moving in and not having to make multiple trips.
Great. Thank you all so much. Next question that I have is from Mike and Christy. What arrangements do parents make with spending money? Do students use a debit card? Do they have a credit card, cash? Is there an advantage of using a nearby bank and getting students accustomed with that? How do they handle money and independence? Mike and Chris, if you could take that one, then I'll go right to you, Grant, for your insight.
One thing that we did was we kind of researched and found some banks that had some ATMs on campus or near campus. And so we immediately set him up an account with that bank with a debit card. So it'd be a little easier for him. He did most of his spending with a debit card. We did get him a credit card for certain school purchases and things like that. And we would discuss when and he could use that. And so he was good about calling us to say, hey, I need to buy some books. I need to buy this. And we say, put it on the credit card. But it wasn't, we made our point clear that that's not something he just goes and uses. And if he needed to spend something for food or whatever, he would use his debit card. So yeah, we definitely set up both, and we definitely had some conversations ahead of time about, the correct way to use that and other things like that. But we wanted to make it as easy for him as we could, to be able to get money or cash when he needed it or spend it or things like that.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. Grant, just go to you really quickly.
Yeah, our son had an account with SunTrust, with local, and I guess it's now going to be Truist, but and a debit card, and that worked out well. We did after I think it was the end of October, the first semester, we sat down with him, and because he put everything on the debit card, came up with a budget of exactly what he was spending in that first 2 or 3 months of college, because we had no idea what, the weekend meals would be like and that sort of thing. And then we agreed on an allowance, basically, a college allowance to help cover some of the food costs in particular that weren't being covered by the meal plan. And that worked out well for us. He didn't get a credit card until just this past spring. And that was more a matter of just starting a credit history for him than anything. But yeah, the debit card worked fine, and the kids now, it's all Venmo anyway. They split everything via Venmo, and so they may charge $30 on the debit card, but then they're getting $25 back from their friends. So don't let them tell you it's $30 for dinner every Saturday night, because it's only $10.
Thank you so much, Grant. And we actually do have a student who is joining us on the webinar. Sarah, if you wouldn't mind just touching on finances and how that was and how those conversations were with your parents.
I'm over here. Okay, let me move this. Sure. So I did my finances mostly on my own in terms of, the day-to-day cost of paying for food and groceries and things like that. And I, after about the first month of doing that, I kind of looked at what I spent on my credit card bill and made adjustments based on the money I had. I also had an internship, and then when I went home, I also did some work over winter break, so I was able to make money that way. And then I know that with some of my friends, they also sometimes have a monthly allowance from their parents too. So it really depends on what you decide is best for you as a student or between you and parents. But that's what I did.
Very awesome. And then so we had another question for you, Sarah, just about shipping things to campus. Is it harder than shipping things to your house? Just as if you were in high school, explain that process about our shipping and picking up packages on campus.
So for picking packages on campus, I know that before the student center was, they're redoing that right now, but that was a place to go pick up packages. I know that a lot of my friends did that with both their mailboxes to get just their mail, and then as well pick up their packages there. So it was a central place on campus. There's also an Amazon store right in Tech Square by Spring Street, and the Barnes & Noble store. So that's also another option if you want to just pick it up there from like an Amazon locker. And then if at some point your student lives off campus, then the packages can get delivered right to their residence.
Awesome. And then lastly, Sarah, while we have you, if you could just talk about safety on campus and just how your experience has been, considering you're out of state as well.
Sure. So I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning. I'm actually from Chicago, Illinois. So I've been dealing with, the conversations of safety, and especially as a girl walking at night since high school. But the Georgia Tech Police Department is really nice. They make a huge effort to, get involved on campus and introduce themselves, and they'll sometimes have the K-9 unit for you guys to meet on campus. So that's really nice. There's also a really great emergency notification system. So if there's bad weather, or they do, a lot of times there will be tests to make sure that the system works, and that's very robust. There's emails whenever things happen near campus, or they usually don't happen on campus, but they're very good about communicating. And then there's a bunch of resources too. If you study really late one night at the library and want police to escort you home, they can do that, or they offer free rides as well through this program called Stingerette. And then I did see a question about MARTA. I take the MARTA a lot. I don't think it's unsafe to use, but you do need to use it at certain hours, and just be aware of your surroundings at all times.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. Now what we'll do is turn it back over to the Pierres. You can just talk about the meal plan. A parent is asking, do you recommend a 5 or 7-day meal plan?
Probably 7 first-year students, because they're getting used to college. They're settling in, and I'd rather have more than less in that situation. Not that they're not gonna starve, obviously, but I think the 7-day meal plan is better for incoming freshmen. That's my opinion.
Yeah, we chose 7 day for both of our boys when in their first year. Especially, they're there for the weekends. They're going to be weekends that they're not going to feel like, going out to find something to eat. That the eating places on campus are open and are accessible on the weekends. So that was what we chose.
Great. Thank you so much. Stephanie, if you wouldn't mind taking that as well.
Yeah, definitely. We're meal plan people. So he did for sure the 7 for the first year. And then even though he's been in North Ave, so he's been in apartment living these last 2 and then next year as well, he'll still get essentially a full meal plan. Just in my opinion, he doesn't have any interest in going shopping every week and getting supplies and, planning on making himself his own well-rounded meals. And so we've been really pleased with the idea of doing the meal plan all 4 of his years. And so currently that CCF organization he's in, they actually have meals 2 of the nights. And so for that reason, we can kind of cut it back because he's doing these other activities that are going to have food. But even though they're going to live in an apartment, that doesn't mean that they have to eat there. And so we've been really pleased that he has been on the meal plan. And I feel like especially those first 2 years, that having to go to the dining hall and go with somebody to eat or meet somebody down there was actually very important for socializing and meeting folks at Tech.
Great. Thank you so much. And for this next question, just for the sake of time, I'll allow each of our 4 panelists to answer it. I think it is a very important question. We'll start with Mike and Christy. What's one thing you wish you had known prior to sending your student to GT that you found out later? And it doesn't have to be move in. It could just be about anything, during their experience within the first year.
And it's hard to quantify that a little bit, Tyler, but I think and for all the new parents out there, it is much easier looking back 4 years than it is looking ahead. I know everyone's a little nervous out there, but I think maybe a little patience. Remember, these kids that are going to Georgia Tech are very, very bright, very smart. And I think just a little patience. They're learning to adult, like I said earlier, and give them some time. They need to do some things on their own. Be patient. They need your help still. But, we did it. We worried about every little thing, whether it was moving, whether he had his car, all these things we're talking about. Should he do the 5-day or the 7-day? Is he going to be okay? Does he have his toothpaste? All that stuff we really worried about. And now looking back on it, he's almost 22 now, and he is excellent with his time management. He's done great with his grades, and he did a lot of that on his own. We didn't have to stand over him to do that all the time. So just I know it's nerve-wracking to send him off. It's nerve-wracking this summer, but I wish I'd been a little bit more patient and not worried about every little detail.
Yeah, I think you learn that your child can make decisions. They might not be the decisions that you would make, but they learn to make decisions. I think with Ryan, the first, month and a half he was there, every possible bad thing that could happen to him happened. He got sick. His clothes got caught in the washing machine on campus and stayed there for 3 days until a technician could come out. And my thought was, oh my gosh, knowing my child, he's probably washed every stitch of clothing he has in that one load that's now trapped in that washing machine, and everything's going to mildew. All these thoughts run through your head, but they can make decisions and they can handle it, and it will be fine. At the time, I thought this is not going to be fine. But like Mike said, have patience that your child can make the decisions and know that they're going to be decisions that they make, so you support them on those decisions.
Great. Thank you all so much. Grant, I'll turn it over to you.
I think for us, it was a matter probably more about there's so many opportunities. We've been local in Atlanta for a long time, but we knew nothing about Georgia Tech, sadly, back before Cole started. and all the different clubs and all the different activities, and the CRC, which is the rec center, and all the things that they had, the hiking and the sports, and it was just on and on and on. And in high school, throughout school, Cole had always been try this, try that, figure out what you like. And we were worried at Tech that he was going to try too many things, because there was all these wonderful sounding things, from the sailing club to the hiking to the this and that, and he managed it. We were worried that the grades were going to suffer, and time management was going to be an issue. But to Mike and Christy's point, the kids figure it out, and he figured it out. He figured out some of the clubs he liked, some that he didn't, and now he's getting back into new clubs this fall that he had never heard of his freshman year. So how they manage their time with all the opportunities at Tech and all the different things they can do is something that, looking back, it's like, okay, he's got this, he'll figure it out, we don't have to worry about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Grant. Stephanie, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, mine are more practical. Those are global. I had 3 things that I didn't realize were going to be a deal, and I'll do them fast. So one is, if you're from out of town and you're going to need storage and that's something that one reserves at least a month ahead of time. So there are several storage places that are right near Georgia Tech, and you're going to want to put on your calendar for April 5th to reserve storage on the day that you're going to move your kid out. So that's one that was important that I didn't know, and it worked out, but that's one. 2 is to really encourage your student to make sure they get to know a couple of teachers early that that they can work with intently, because they're going to need those recommendations for grad schools and for jobs and offers and whatnot. And so even if they like a teacher, you encourage them that they need to get to know, make sure that they really get to know a few of their teachers well, and that's going to take effort on their part, not just liking the teacher. And then last one is scheduling classes whenever that comes up for each next semester. I think maybe some schools it's easy. For him, there were just enough classes that you had to be on the ball, and I actually was on the computer at the same time that he got his time ticket to schedule classes, and that was helpful because I could go on, just the regular Oscar site to look at what classes were available to help him through that process if things were filling up fast. So your student may not be interested in your being involved in that, but our son was, and it was useful to know how to use the system from a general standpoint. I mean, anybody can get on and look at the schedules, but you can also see how many kids are in each one at a time. So anyway, those 3 things are worth knowing something about ahead of time.
Awesome. Maxine and Kelvin?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. The one thing that I didn't know was the level of support that the students provided to each other. There's camaraderie, but I would encourage you to encourage your student to just get outside of their comfort zone, because the students at Georgia Tech are so helpful. I mean, they're friendly. It's just, just walk up to someone that you don't know and just say hello, and you'll find that could be a lasting friendship. So I'm answering your question a different way. I was just so worried. I was one of those dads who I would tease my wife about crying when we dropped off my son, and I was the one crying from the moment we left campus until we got home. So the tears are fine. I worried, but once he called home and told us how many different people he met, how many different friends, they're friends that he met his freshman year. They're still awesome friends to this day. So.
Yep. And I'll say that also from a teaching perspective. Georgia Tech is not an easy school; it's a hard school, and the accessibility that the students have to the teachers, the office hours, the TAs, the review sessions. I just, again, you just worry for their academics, that we worry for their social, and we were extremely happy, that after going through that experience, all those worries were appeased, because we saw the support both from the community of the students and the community of the teachers and the staff.
Yep. And Tyler, for the parents who are going through this for the first time, as we did a few years ago, I just want to reassure you that it's 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 going to be more than fine. When you look back, when you're us 2 years from now, you'll see that it's okay to worry, but they will be just fine.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And then lastly, I would actually like to turn it over to Sarah as well, just so she can share her experience at Georgia Tech and as a student, you know, just reflecting on her relationship with her parents. What is something that, you all kind of learned in the parent to student relationship that you can share, like that a student should, communicate to a parent that's good to know, just for some advice.
So the advice I have for the communication between your parent as a student is I I really have very close relationships with my parents. Some of my friends think maybe I tell them too much, but I find a lot of comfort in that, and I like for them to assess some of the decisions that I make, and give me their advice or their opinion and their thought process on it. But at the end of the day, I still own my decisions. I still, it's my college experience. I need to go out and do the things that are required for me to, achieve my goals. So I would say that my advice is to have a fluid and dynamic relationship that's open, but I like the way our parents' office describes it. It's kind of like a tandem bike. You need to be supporting from the back and let your student be independent and make all the decisions that they need to do, since this is a very developmental part of their life.
And then Ellery, do you have any closing remarks for us just on behalf of admissions?
Yeah, thank you so much, Tyler. These questions in the back were very, very insightful. So thank you all for your questions. I would say that my last words of advice to the family is to just reach out. There are definitely a lot of resources here on campus, and you hear that a lot, but we really do have tons and tons of resources for parents, so you can get connected with your students and what's going on around campus. With that, congratulations to you all. I know it's exciting, it's nerve-wracking, but it is really a great time for your child. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Ellery, and thank you, Sarah, and thank you to our panelists. We hope you enjoyed our time here tonight. We really had a lot of fun. This is one of our most highly attended virtual events that we've hosted. And so we are excited to kind of share our experiences here tonight. We know that there are several questions that perhaps may not have been answered. And just for the sake of time, please email our office. We are your backbone, parents@gatech.edu. In case we didn't get to your question, I can perhaps answer them myself or Sarah, or I may forward them to one of our panelists if they are willing to communicate with you all further. This will be recorded and posted to our website within 24 hours, parents.gatech.edu, under the Stay Connected tab under virtual recordings. We will be hosting another one of these in July, so please be on the lookout for that. We will send communication for that. I would like to pub our family weekend, which is a weekend full of events, October 1st through the 3rd. It's a great way, no matter where you're from, no matter where you are, to come back to campus, connect with your student, spend some time with them, attend a football game, attend some educational sessions, hear from the president, get a campus tour. Family weekend is really, really awesome. And so definitely visit our website for that as well. I saw a couple questions about Week of Welcome. There will be a Week of Welcome for your students, which are events that will be hosted for your students, kind of get out the dorm room, meet people, have some fun that week after move-in. And like Stephanie said, we are encouraging parents kind of, stay if you like an extra day or two, but we're really encouraging parents to kind of let their students go and enjoy that time. There will be events for parents on the 2 move-in days. They will be repetitive, so no matter what day you move in, that you will have the same couple of events, just as things for you to stop by while you're moving in. And so that information will be coming out as well. We have our newsletter that we send out our information to via email, so you will be updated about all this information as we get closer to time. Once again, my name is Tyler Barker, coordinator within the Office of Parent and Family Programs. We had so much of a great time here tonight. And once again, email us, call us if you have any questions. And thank you so much for coming. We look forward to seeing you soon. Go Jackets. And I'll just ask our panelists to stay behind briefly.